Welcome back to Taiwan Outlook. Our guest today is Dr. Chen-Yuan Tung. He's the Vice Chairperson of Mainland Affairs Council. And we've been talking about economic ties between Taiwan and China. Dr. Tung, as you mentioned that the government has very serious concern about this kind of dependency of Taiwan's economy on China. But on the other hand, China has been very aggressive in trying to put Taiwan in that kind of situation by giving all kinds of economic incentives and so on. So what's the overall China strategy towards Taiwan?
Well, I think China's goal is quite clear. They would like to annihilate the Republic of China and annex Taiwan. So they try to adopt so-called soft-prong approach and hard-prong approach. So on the one hand, they continue to exert pressures on Taiwan in terms of military threat and diplomatic aspiration. And on the other hand, they try to provide some economic inducement toward Taiwan, and particularly toward some particular business groups, and try to utilize these groups to influence Taiwan's government policy toward China, and even try to coerce Taiwan's government to make political concession to China. So you can see over the last 3 years, particularly after Hu Jintao proposed to Taiwan that they would like to conduct some policy conducive to unification between Taiwan and China. So they continue to provide a lot of unilateral provincial treatments to Taiwanese people. And particularly they also utilize the cooperation of opposition party in Taiwan to coerce Taiwan's government.
But this kind of preferential treatment cannot, has been effective or not very effective?
Well, honestly speaking, we face tremendous pressures from business people to ask the Taiwan's government to open up further to China. But from our government point of view, we would like to review these kind of exchanges and then establish a sound mechanism to facilitate exchanges and even to manage this kind of risk. But on the other hand, a lot of issue has been involved with bilateral negotiation, which cannot be opened up only by Taiwan side, but it requires bilateral negotiation. For instance, in the past, we proposed 20 issues, more than 20 issues, to be negotiated between Taiwan and China. But before 2005, the Chinese government always insisted Taiwan need to accept so-called one China principle. So you can see the Chinese government try to use this kind of economic incentive or economic interest to coerce Taiwan to open up and to coerce Taiwan to make political concession to China.
But the thing is, given the fact that there are more than 70% of our investments goes to China right now, economically it doesn't make sense because you put all your eggs in one basket. So the problem is that how can the government manage this kind of negative development in Taiwan Strait?
Well, honestly speaking, it would be very difficult for the government to control this kind of flow from Taiwan to China in terms of investment or trade, in the area of the globalization. But on the other hand, the government try to provide advices to Taiwanese people and try to improve our investment environment in Taiwan, and even try to provide sufficient information for Taiwan business people. And also we try to help Taiwan business people to divert their investment to other countries so that we can gradually try to minimize this kind of risk. But in addition, we also need to negotiate with China so that we can establish more sound mechanism to regulate in these kind of changes. So as I mentioned to you, before 2005, the Chinese government insisted Taiwan need to accept so-called one China principle. So there was no communication and even negotiation to establish a sound mechanism to regulate and facilitate exchanges between Taiwan and China. But then after 2005, the Chinese government seemed to abandon the so-called one China principle. And then we has reached some agreements on charter flight arrangements.
That's right.
And currently, we are still negotiating with China on 3 other issues. There is tourism issue, the opening of Taiwan to Chinese tourists, and also regular cargo charter flight, and regular passenger charter flight. We have conducted 6 rounds of negotiation with Chinese government on tourism issue. And also we have conducted 8 rounds of negotiation on charter flight issue. So we hope both sides can gradually to negotiate on all these kind of functional issue areas so that we can establish a mechanism, more sound mechanism to regulate and also to minimize the risk.
But the thing is, with these kind of direct links between the two sides, open up Chinese tourism to come to Taiwan and so on, will there be more dependency of Taiwan on China?
Well, that would be inevitable because, Taiwan's economy actually, cross-strait economic relations is driven by investment. So as long as Taiwan people would like to continue to invest in China, then we face tremendous pressures for closer and closer economic changes. So from Taiwan's point of view, we need to manage this kind of risk, but we cannot resolve or we cannot diffuse this kind of risk.
Apparently, there are all kinds of risks, for any other countries as well. But for Taiwan, China is the threat, You still have missiles deployed on the opposite side of Taiwan Strait. So what are the possible economic, in addition to the economic risk, how about the political and security risks that Taiwan has to face with this kind of dependency on China's market?
Well, if we talk about dependence, probably we should look at the issue in two dimensions, not only one dimension. So on the one hand, your economy will be dependent on China. But on the other hand, Chinese economy will also be led into world economy.
That's right.
For instance, I just mentioned to you, in 2005, Taiwanese people contribute to more than 72% of Chinese high technology exports to the world.
Yeah.
And also Taiwanese people directly employed around 20 million Chinese workers in their factory directly in 2005. So if we calculate upstream and downstream linkage to Taiwanese people, this figure might reach as high as 40 million Chinese workers. So this will also created some risk for Chinese government to launch military attacks on Taiwan. But also, we need to concern about this kind of asymmetric interdependence between Taiwan and China.
That's right.
So there are some risks, but also there are some opportunities to maintain this kind of peace and development between Taiwan and China.
But the issue is whether this kind of relation is interdependent or dependent. In other words, Taiwan depends more on China than the other way around. What's the current situation right now?
Well, in terms of economic size, Taiwan's economy has been more dependent on China. But as I mentioned to you, economic relations between Taiwan and China has been part of global commodity chains. There is a division of labor among Taiwan, China, and the world economy. So from this perspective, where Chinese economy also been integrated into the world economy. So they will have some cost if they would like to launch military attacks against Taiwan. But on the other hand, we need to put some hedge on this kind of situation. That is, we still have asymmetric interdependence on China. So we'd better to diversify our investment to other countries, not just put all eggs in one basket.
But the thing is not just military attacks from China against Taiwan. It's also about other political offensives from Beijing against Taiwan as well. So yes, with this kind of integration of China into the world economy, do you think that the whole world or even Taiwan can influence China's policy behaviors towards Taiwan in particular?
Well, I think bilateral disputes is sovereignty per se. So they will be very difficult to resolve this kind of issue just because of economic dependence, interdependence between Taiwan and China. But nevertheless, this kind of economic changes might provide some positive element fear for bilateral negotiation and communication. But again, some risks still exist over there. For economic inducement, the Chinese government might provide some economic preferential treatments for particular business groups to influence Taiwan's politics, and also economic sanction. The Chinese government might threaten to disrupt bilateral economic changes so that they continue to exert pressures on Taiwan's government to make political concession. So all these are risks we faced for closer and closer economic changes. Even closer economic changes might provide some positive atmosphere for cross-strait negotiation or cross-strait context, but still this kind of risk is still there.
But finally, could you tell us what's the prospects of a cross-strait economic relations in the long run? In other words, are you seeing a greater integration, economic integration between the two sides, or there will be some distance between Taiwan and China in the long run?
Well, there will be a new government, new administration in the next 2 months. And the new administration seems to have a more opening policy toward China. But on the one hand, they can open up unilaterally. For some cases, for example, they would like to leave the bans of the 40% of investment cap for Taiwanese people in China. And also they might recognize the Chinese diploma of Chinese university. And also they might invite more Chinese people to invest in Taiwan. So these are unilateral opening policy the new administration can adopt it. But on the other hand, if Taiwan's economic changes with China will continue to deepen, this will require bilateral negotiation. And if Chinese government continue to insist on one China principle, this will be very difficult for bilateral negotiation. For instance, we have allowed our banking sector to set up their branches, their representative office in China. But currently, Taiwan's government, as well as Chinese government, would not allow our banking sector to set up subsidiaries or branches in China because Taiwan and China have no financial supervisory agreements, which require negotiation between Taiwan and China. So if in the future, a lot of service industries, if we would like to open up for these service industries, then we are required to negotiate with China.
That's right.
So this really depends on Chinese political attitude toward Taiwan.
So the ball is now in Beijing's court, right?
Yeah, sure.
And thank you very much, Dr. Tung. Thank you for sharing your comments. And
thank you, Professor Low.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Taiwan Outlook. And that's Dr. Chen-Yuan Tung, Vice Chairperson of the Mainland Affairs Council. Thank you for watching and see you next time.